Chapter 51. 51, A Thunderbolt Out of the Blue. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 51. A Thunderbolt Out of the Blue. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. Actually, she was worried about something else. Lu Miao was an unfilial daughter. Although she hated her in every way, her appearance was like a genetic mutation. She had all the good points that the couple had, and she also had all the good points that they didn't. She was indeed exquisite and beautiful beyond reproach. What if that young Master Fu came out later and took a fancy to her? Who knew if Lu Miao would abandon Mr. Gu, who would die at any moment, and marry young Master Fu? After all, people always strive for better opportunities and options. And besides, if it wasn't for her intentions, how could she have taken advantage of Mr. Gu's absence from the country and made every effort to hook up with other men to attend the banquet together? Lu Miao raised her eyebrows and pointed at Fu Jingshan. You said he was a wild man. He knows that you're already engaged, but he's still hanging out with you. If he's not a wild man, what is he? Qin Shuang looked at Fu Jingshan with some disdain and said unhappily. What kind of person could be involved with Lu Miao? There was no one in Luo City that they did not know. They had never even seen this person before. Their target today was young Master Fu. They were not afraid of offending such a small fry. Lu Miao silently lit a candle for them in her heart and nodded. Then I wish you all the best. Fu Jingshan, who was standing by, felt a bit helpless. He did not expect that this little girl was such a troublemaker. Knowing that this couple's goal today was him, she deliberately provoked them to insult him in front of his face. He raised his hand to cover his mouth and coughed lightly. Then, he said politely, Mrs. Lu, is it inappropriate for you to talk about your daughter like this? What does it have to do with you? Who do you think you are? How dare you tell me what to do here? Qin Shuang cursed without holding back. If you know what's good for you, stay away from her and mind your own business. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died. Fu Jingshan was already amused by these weird parents, and now he finally understood why Lu Miao's attitude towards them was so firm. It was really unlucky to meet such an extreme parent. His good self-restraint and manners made him swallow the foul word that was about to come out. People like you are not worthy of being parents. You are not welcome here. Please leave immediately. Qin Shuang sneered and said sarcastically, just a dog like you who can't even rise to the occasion, you should weigh yourself before you speak. Do you think you're Mr. Fu? This banquet is not hosted by your family, so what qualifications do you have to kick us out? I don't even welcome you here. They were originally at the entrance of the corner. The commotion here had already attracted the attention of some people in the banquet hall, and many people looked over. Some were watching the show, while others were gloating. When Lu Qin saw this, his expression turned ugly. He scolded Lu Miao in a low voice, you shameless thing. Hurry up and scram while there are fewer people paying attention to you. You've ruined the reputation of the Lu family. I won't forgive you when we go back. As he spoke, he glared at Lu Miao and reached out to grab Lu Miao and drag her out of the door. It was obvious that Lu Miao did not intend to give them the huge dowry gift. Since that was the case, there was no need for them to put on a show to coax her. He would not allow anyone to ruin his plans today. Fu Jingshan's face darkened instantly. He stepped forward and stood in front of Lu Miao. Who do you want to scram? A cold voice came from behind them. Hearing this voice, Lu Miao could not help but feel a headache. Who could tell her what was going on? Wasn't he in M Nation last night? He said he wouldn't come back, so why did he come back so soon? A pair of large hands grabbed her shoulders from behind and brought her to his side. Seeing Gu Shiyan suddenly appear, Lu Qin and Qin Shuang's faces instantly turned pale. They still had a deep memory of what happened in the mall last time. This guy was crazy. He could do anything regardless of the occasion. He did not know what kind of demonic spell Lu Miao had used on him to make Gu Shiyan protect her like that. Lu Xiu, who was by the side, was calm as she softly said. Brother Shiyan, I'm sorry. Dad and Mom only saw Miao Miao appearing here with other men. They were afraid that it would affect you badly if others saw it, so they were a little anxious. If they've made you unhappy, I'll apologize on their behalf. I hope you won't be angry. Lu Miao wanted to applaud her for saying that. Lu Xiu really understood the essence of green tea. How was this an apology to Gu Shiyan? She was clearly complaining to Gu Shiyan that she had seduced other men. No man could tolerate his wife going out to hook up with other people. Lu Xiu glanced at her and sneered in her heart. She did not believe that Gu Shiyan would continue to protect her after witnessing it with his own eyes and catching her in the act. Qin Shuang, who was at the side, quickly echoed, yes, that's right. We really couldn't bear to see her cuckold you, so we had no choice but to scold her. Sure enough, it was still their family's baby Siyu who was smart and sensible. She thought of a countermeasure so quickly and even knew to protect them. Fu Jingshan was a little speechless. Mr. Gu, it's not what they said. Gu Shiyan had been hiding his strength all these years. Outsiders only thought that he was an ordinary businessman, but in fact, even Master Fu valued him quite a lot. It was just that in the past, it was Master Fuji who had interacted with him. This was the first time he had seen him alone. Gu Shiyan lowered his eyes to look at the person beside him. The hand that was holding her shoulder tightened slightly. Young Master Fu, you don't have to explain. I believe in my girl. Ha, Mr. Gu, don't listen to these two shameless nonsense. The two of them are together, so of course, they won't tell you the truth. Qin Shuang was halfway through her sentence when she suddenly realized what Gu Shiyan had just said. She raised her head abruptly and looked at Fu Jingshan in disbelief. Young Master Fu. What young Master Fu? Which young Master Fu? What do you think? Fu Jingshan looked at her with a half-dot smile. This sentence was like a bolt from the blue, striking Qin Shuang until her vision turned black. Lu Xiu and Lu Qin, who were at the side, finally realized who the person in front of them was. Other than their target tonight, who else could it be to appear at this banquet and make Gu Shiyan call him young Master Fu? He thought of what they had said and done in front of him just now. Qin Shuang wished she could go back to how she slapped herself a few minutes ago. It was over, it was over. They were completely over now. Forget about relying on young Master Fu, they would be thanking the heavens if young Master Fu did not teach them a lesson. The three of them instantly turned ashen. Qin Shuang trembled as she said, young Master Fu, yes. I'm sorry, I was blind. I didn't recognize you. Please be magnanimous and don't argue with small fry like us. Oh. Chapter 52. 52, Claiming Ownership. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 52. Claiming Ownership. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation, I don't think I'm the one you need to apologize to. Fu Jingshan took a step back and glanced at Lu Miao. Qin Shuang gritted her teeth. Damn Lu Miao, she must have purposely made her scold young Master Fu just now. Thinking of this, she wished she could skin her alive immediately. But now, she could only bite the bullet and say to Lu Miao, Miao Miao, I'm sorry. It was all my fault just now. I was too worried about you. I was too worried, so I spoke without thinking. I apologize to you and hope that you can let bygones be bygones. Let bygones be bygones is too hypocritical. I prefer to take revenge on the spot. Put away your hypocritical and disgusting apology. It's dirtying my ears. Lu Miao's eyes were filled with disgust. Qin Shuang had long been accustomed to constantly insulting Lu Miao verbally. She was already aggrieved when she apologized to her now. When she heard her words, the anger in her heart instantly exploded like a volcano erupting. Out of habit, she gritted her teeth and scolded, "You little b*tch." Before she could finish scolding, Gu Shiyan's lightning-fast hand struck her chin, and dislocated it. No one could see his movements clearly. Qin Shuang's mouth hung open, no matter how hard she tried, she could not close it. She was in so much pain that she wanted to scream, but today's banquet was basically attended by all the wealthy and famous people in Luo City. If she really screamed out, everyone would know what had happened here. Then, their Lu family would become the joke of the entire upper-class society in the future. Not to mention marrying Lu Xiyu into a good family and finding a strong backing for the Lu family, everyone would probably look down on them. However, she only dared to cover her mouth and did not dare to make a sound. Meanwhile, the cowardly Lu Qin was already scared half to death because he had offended young Master Fu. When he saw that Gu Shiyan was actually so arrogant in front of young Master Fu without any hesitation, he was so scared that he did not even dare to utter a sound. Lu Xiyu's eyes darted around Gu Shiyan and Fu Jingshan. She gritted her teeth and made up her mind. She reached out to pull Fu Jingshan with tears in her eyes. "Young Master Fu, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have come to look for Miao Miao. Please, help my mother." Her tear-stained appearance was pitiful. Fu Jingshan's movements were swift, as if he was avoiding a snake or scorpion. He quickly took a step back and avoided her hand. He couldn't afford to enjoy this kind of attention from her. "Miss Lu, people have to pay the price for their mistakes. Otherwise, why would we need the law?" Lu Xiyu's hand froze in midair, and her face was burning. Was she that dirty? He didn't even touch her, and he had to avoid her like this. This was even more humiliating than slapping her in the face. What was so good about this little slut, Lu Miao? Mr. Gu, Auntie Shen, and Gu Jinsi were all protecting her. Now, even young Master Fu was protecting her. And all of this should have belonged to her. Lu Miao, this slut, should be cut into pieces. She tried her best to hide the hatred in her eyes and turned to look at Lu Miao, crying, "Miao." Unexpectedly, before she could even finish calling out her name, Gu Shiyan reached out his hands and covered Lu Miao's ears. "Don't shout. Don't dirty my little friend's ears." This humiliation was even worse than Fu Jingshan's earlier actions. More and more people gathered to watch from afar, and those who were clearly gloating did not hide at all. Lu Xiyu only felt as if she was stripped naked. She couldn't stay here for another second. Silently crying, she covered her face, turned around, and ran out of the door. Gu Shiyan glanced at Lu Qin and Qin Shuang coldly. The two of them didn't dare to say anything else and left as if they were escaping. Gu Shiyan lowered his head to look at Lu Miao. "Are you all right?" Lu Miao was baffled. What could be wrong with her? It was not like he did not know that she could fight. If the couple met her, they would definitely be the ones who were unlucky. However, he still nodded. "It's fine." Fu Jingshan, however, could tell that there was something else behind his words, and he couldn't help but find it amusing. He had no intention of competing with him for her attention. Gu Shiyan then turned around and greeted Fu Jingshan. "I'm sorry to make a fool of myself. My little friend still had to go home to do her homework, so we won't stay any longer. Send my regards to your father." Fu Jingshan smiled and replied, "Take care, Mr. Gu." Just as he was about to say goodbye to Lu Miao, he received a look of rejection from Lu Miao. He raised his eyebrows and wisely did not speak again. As he watched the two of them leave, he raised his hand to stroke his chin. During their conversation, he had already received all of T.11 Miao's information and naturally knew her relationship with Gu Shiyan. Mr. Gu seemed to be in good condition now. It seemed that his recovery was definitely related to Lu Miao. The last bit of doubt he had about Lu Miao had disappeared. However, from Lu Miao's reaction, Gu Shiyan did not seem to know her secret. Interesting. When they left the hotel, the car was already waiting outside. The two of them got into the car. Gu Shiyan turned around and raised his hand to help Lu Miao fasten her seatbelt. As the distance between them suddenly shortened, Lu Miao could clearly see that Gu Shiyan, who had always been clean and tidy, had a lot of green stubble on his chin. It was obvious that he had rushed back overnight. Oh, don't you need to see Master Fu? Otherwise, why else would he rush back so quickly? Gu Shiyan did not answer her. Instead, he asked, how did you know? Master Lu Miao lied with a straight face. I don't know him. My friend asked me to come here today for something. I accidentally got lost and went to the wrong place. I happened to bump into him, but I don't know who he is. Is that so? Gu Shiyan raised his eyebrows slightly. His unique refreshing scent invaded every inch of the air around her. It was as if he wanted to engulf her entirely. Yes. Lu Miao nodded. Her expression was extremely calm, without the slightest hint of guilt. Gu Shiyan straightened out her clothes, which had been crumpled by the seatbelt. He made a sound of agreement and didn't ask any further questions, turning back to his seat and settling in. The car drove steadily towards the Gu residence. Lu Miao turned her head to look out the window. The night had already fallen, and the streets on either side were lit up with dazzling lights. Gu Shiyan's handsome face was reflected on the glass of the car window. He was probably too tired from catching the plane and was taking a nap with his eyes closed. The goddess must have been particularly fond of him when she created him. His exquisite facial features were better than 99% of the girls. His long eyelashes drooped down, casting a small shadow under his eyelids. Lu Miao subconsciously raised her hand to touch her own eyelashes. When she looked up, she saw that Gu Shiyan's eyes had already opened at some point in time. He was turning his head to look at the car window. Their eyes met in the reflection of the glass window. Lu Miao. She turned her eyes as if nothing had happened and pretended that nothing had happened. She had not been caught peeking. A smile flashed across Gu Shiyan's eyes. The fatigue of sitting on the plane for more than 20 hours without a break seemed to have dissipated a lot. The corners of his lips curled up as he retracted his gaze. Chapter 53. 53, Born to be Her Bane. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 53. Born to be Her Bane. L.C. Translator. Drayan Boat Translation Editor. Drayan Boat Translation. When he returned to the Gu family, Gu Jinsi was already waiting at the door. When he saw Gu Shiyan and Lu Miao enter the house together, he did not bother to greet Gu Shiyan. He turned around and grabbed the exercises on the living room table. He ran to Lu Miao immediately. He handed her a stack of practice questions and took the initiative to report, Sister.in.law, I've listened to you. I've finished writing all the units for each subject. Please check them. Lu Miao took it and flipped through it. She realized that he had indeed done his homework seriously. The process of solving the question was extremely clear. The handwriting was beautiful and neat, and there was no hint of perfunctory meaning. How is it? Gu Jinsi's eyes sparkled as he looked at her. He was like a kindergarten child, begging for praise. Gu Xingyu, who was at the side, could not bear to watch. She absolutely did not want to admit that this husky-like retarded humanoid dog in front of her was her twin brother who had grown up in the same womb as her. Looking at his worshipful gaze, it was simply too embarrassing for her. She gritted her teeth and snorted. Traitor. What traitor? If you had half of Jingxi's talent for judging people, I would have gone to the temple to burn incense and thank the gods. Shen Qinghe raised her hand and poked her forehead. When Gu Jinsi heard this, he was even more pleased with himself. He turned his head and raised his chin at Gu Xingyu smugly. Then, he continued to turn his head and ask Lu Miao for advice with a look of admiration. Lu Miao pointed out a few mistakes in the homework and greeted Shen Qinghe before leading Gu Jingxi upstairs. Gu Xingyu was left fuming on the couch in the living room. How irritating, she had been insulted again. Now, in Shinchingha's eyes, she was even worse than Gu Jinsi, who had always been a troublemaker. Wasn't it just homework? What's so great about it? Lu Miao must have done it on purpose to spite her. At the side, Gu Shiyan watched Lu Miao and Gu Jinsi go upstairs and narrowed his eyes. What was going on with Gu Jinsi? Didn't he always hate studying and doing homework? As long as someone in the family tried to persuade him, he would immediately turn hostile. Why was he so self-aware today and even took the initiative to ask Lu Miao for advice? Moreover, every time this rascal came home, it was as if he had eaten a cannonball. His family was like enemies in his eyes. He didn't even know how to speak properly. He had only been away from home for a few days, and he had already changed so much. Shen Qinghe, who was beside him, seemed to have guessed his doubts. She was so happy that she could not close her mouth. He went forward and explained with a smile, yesterday, Miao Miao helped him teach that kid from the Song family a lesson at the police station. After coming back from the police station, Jinsi has been very obedient to her. When Miao Miao called in the afternoon and asked him to do his homework, I was afraid that he would be stupid again and lose his temper. I didn't expect him to obediently run off to do his homework. Miao Miao is really our Gu family's lucky star. She didn't even dare to think about this a month ago. She was really grateful to Lu Qin and Qin Shuang for their schemes back then, which allowed them to pick up such a big treasure. Gu Shiyan was naturally aware of what had happened at the police station yesterday. However, after Gu Jinsi was brought to the police station, why did he take the initiative to call Lu Miao? If he remembered correctly, Lu Miao and Gu Jinsi had only met once before this. Or was there something between the two of them that none of them knew about? Was it really a coincidence that they met at Hilton Hotel? He had always known that Lu Miao had many secrets. But now, it seemed that he had underestimated her. What lucky star! I think it's more like a demon star. Gu Xingyu whispered in dissatisfaction. This woman was simply her natural bane. You'd better go back and do your homework. All these years of studying have been in vain. In the whole family, your eyesight is the worst. Shen Qinghe chased her away. She had already given up on saving Gu Xingyu. It's your eyes that have problems, Gu Xingyu retorted silently in her heart. She stood up angrily and went upstairs to her room. Shen Qinghe said to Gu Shiyan, you haven't recovered yet. We can't delay her. So if Xiao Xiao wants to leave, I won't stop her. But once you're healthy again, you better cherish her well. If someone takes her away when she grows up, I won't spare you. She thought of something. By the way, didn't you say you wouldn't be back for another week? Why did you come back suddenly? Did you come to pick up Miao Miao? Shen Qinghe's eyes lit up with excitement. We met outside. Gu Shiyan replied casually and turned around to go to the kitchen. 20 minutes later, someone knocked on Lu Miao's door. Who is it? Don't you know that we're studying? Gu Jinsi's impatient voice came from the room after being disturbed. Then, the door was opened from the inside. Seeing Gu Shiyan standing outside the door, Gu Jinsi quickly swallowed the words he was about to say. The only person he feared in the Gu family was his second brother. However, when he saw the thing in his hand, Gu Jinsi almost suspected that the person in front of him was an illusion. Chapter 54. 54, Finally Found You. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 54. Finally Found You. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. The appearance of this thing in this scene was really out of place. Moreover, when did his second brother, the cold-faced demon, become so gentle and domesticated? He looked at the food tray in his hand and felt a thud in his heart. Ever since his engagement, his second brother had been constantly running around outside and rarely at home. It is obvious that he was clearly dissatisfied with the arranged marriage. Oh no, is he trying to poison her with his own hands? Otherwise, how could he suddenly be so courteous? Gu Shiyan raised his leg and was about to walk past him. Gu Jinsi quickly took a step forward and stood in front of him. He laughed dryly. Hee, second brother, go do your thing. Give this to me. Gu Shiyan glanced at him coldly and said mercilessly, if you want to eat, go get it yourself. Before he could take a step, Gu Jinsi had already blocked him again. Gu Shiyan narrowed his eyes. Gu Jinsi turned around and secretly looked at Lu Miao, who was seriously correcting his questions in front of the desk. He gritted his teeth. He leaned in front of him and whispered in a voice that only the two of them could hear, second brother, I know you don't like second sister. In law and think she's not worthy of you, but you can't do something like poisoning the food, right? Second sister. In law is really very good, Gu Jinsi kept babbling, and Gu Shiyan's forehead could not help but twitch. Watch less stupid dramas. He raised his long legs and walked around him, walking toward Lu Miao. He placed the plate on the table in front of her. You haven't eaten dinner yet. Eat something first. The fragrance of the yang chun noodles entered her nose, and Lu Miao finally felt that her stomach was rumbling with hunger. Previously, her understanding of the CEO came from some melodramatic dramas. They are usually arrogant, domineering, and extremely self-centered. They would do anything to find out what they wanted to know. However, Gu Shiyan seemed to be completely different. Every time he communicated with her, it was just right. He did not ask too much about what she did not want to say, respected her privacy, and was thoughtful and considerate in everything. He even noticed that she hadn't eaten. Thank you. Gu Shiyan glanced at Gu Jinsi at the side and said slowly, Jinsi's foundation is too weak. It's already hard enough for you to go to school by yourself every day, so you don't need to spend too much energy tutoring him. If he can pass, that's enough. If necessary, I'll find a private tutor for him later. Gu Jinsi felt speechless. Was this his biological brother? He finally found someone as godly as his sister. In law, but his brother actually told her to ignore him. Lu Miao did not mind. Although his foundation is a little weak, he's obedient enough. It's not difficult. Always prioritize yourself first. You still have classes tomorrow. Gu Shiyan said directly, then looked at Gu Jinsi. I'll give you 10 minutes. Go back to your room and sleep. Gu Jinsi rolled his eyes at him. I know. When he finally sent his second brother off, he turned around and saw that Lu Miao had already picked up her chopsticks and started eating. Startled, he quickly went up and asked nervously, Sister. In law, are you okay? Do you have a stomachache? Or are you feeling unwell? Although he had been very quiet at the door just now, Lu Miao's 5 senses were already extraordinary. This child had really watched too many melodramatic dramas. However, it was still beyond her expectations that Gu Jinsi would protect her like this. Don't worry, there's no poison in here. Gu Jinsi's thoughts were exposed and he chuckled. The next morning, Gu Shiyan personally sent Lu Miao to school. At noon, Lu Miao avoided everyone and sneaked to the observatory tower behind the field. Although the Gu family was skeptical of Lin Bufan's words, they were still quite concerned about this project. After a month, the main part of the observatory was more than half completed. According to the current progress, it should be completed in less than 3 months. After confirming that there were no problems with the formations and talismans that had been buried in various places, Lu Miao turned around and was about to leave when she saw the uncle that she had met last time walking over from the direction of the school building with a frown. He saw her. Her eyes lit up as she walked over quickly and said in surprise, Little girl, I've finally found you. Uncle, is there anything you need? Lu Miao asked. After you gave me the small pouch last time, the steel pipe on the shelf fell on the 3rd day and brushed past my scalp. I almost lost my life. When I went home to change my clothes at night, I realized that the things in the small pouch had already turned to dust. I knew that it must have saved my life. The middle-aged man reached into his pocket excitedly and took out a red packet, then shoved it into Lu Miao's hand. I went to the front to look for you several times but couldn't find you. This is a small token of my appreciation. Lu Miao pushed the red packet back. It was nothing. You don't have to take it to heart. She was telling the truth. At that time, she had only acted because she saw that the uncle was kind. She had never thought of asking for anything in return. No, nothing is taken for granted. Please accept it. The uncle insisted on giving the red packet back to her. Lu Miao had no choice but to accept it. He was about to leave when he saw that the uncle wanted to say something but hesitated. He asked directly, "Uncle, is there anything else?" The middle-aged man gritted his teeth and said embarrassedly. "Little girl, can you tell me where you bought the small pouch last time? I want to buy another one." Lu Miao looked at him from head to toe. "You don't need it." The middle-aged man sighed and said worriedly, "It's my daughter. I told you last time that she's also a student at this school. She's in her second year of high school. A few nights ago, when she returned home, she seemed to have suddenly changed into a different person. She stayed at home 24 hours a day and ate non-stop. If we didn't let her eat, she would look at us with that terrifying gaze and even bite us crazily. Her stomach was about to burst, but he was still eating. Oh, I asked the doctor to come and see me, but the doctor was scared away. My wife said that she might be possessed. I've also looked for a master, but it's useless. I don't know if that small pouch is useful, but I really have no other choice. No matter what, I want to try. I can't watch my daughter die from being stuffed to death." Lne uncle's eyes re-enia as any spoke. Lu Miao pondered for a moment. That small pouch is useless to her. However, I can go back with you to take a look. The middle-aged man's eyes lit up instantly. He said excitedly, "All right, I'll bring you back now." Since Lu Miao could tell that he was in danger, she might be able to tell that something was wrong with his daughter. Thinking that this was a school, she hurriedly said, "I'm sorry, I forgot that you guys haven't finished school yet. I'll wait for you at the school gate after school in the afternoon." Lu Miao nodded. After setting the time and place for the meeting, she took out her phone to check the time. Since there was still some time before the afternoon class, she left the school and went to the market. After school in the afternoon, when she arrived at the school gate, the uncle was already waiting there. He was looking in anxiously. When he saw her, he quickly came over to welcome her. The uncle's house was in an old residential area. The residential buildings inside were all 5-story low buildings. Probably because of the age, the outer walls had already peeled off a lot. The weather was still hot, and the sun had yet to set. As they walked outside, their foreheads were covered in sweat. As soon as the two of them walked into the building where they lived, Lu Miao sensed a trace of coldness. The uncle lived on the top floor. There was no elevator in this building. The two of them climbed up the stairs, and the chill became even stronger. When they reached the 5th floor, the coldness was almost at its peak. The sunlight outside the window shone through the glass window at the top of the corridor, but it did not feel warm at all when it shone on people. With a creak, the old door of the opposite house opened, and a woman in her 30s or 40s walked out. She cursed the damn corridor in a low voice for being so cold on such a hot day. She rubbed her arms and quickly went downstairs. The middle-aged man took out the key and braced himself to open the door. Chapter 55. 55. Looks like she's been pregnant for several months. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 55. Looks like she's been pregnant for several months. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. The middle-aged man took out the key and braced himself to open the door. The moment Lu Miao entered the room, she saw a huge aura of resentment that almost enveloped the entire house. The living room was in a mess. An auntie in plain clothes was pacing around the kitchen door anxiously. One of her hands still had bloody teeth marks. The resentment seeped into her body through the wound on her hand. Through the door, there was a faint clanging sound coming from the kitchen. Hearing the sound of the door opening, the auntie turned to look at the uncle anxiously. "How is it? Did you buy the small pouch?" Mumu's condition couldn't be delayed any longer. The uncle quickly went forward and grabbed her hand. "Mumu bit you again. Why are your hands cold?" "I'm fine. Where's the small pouch?" The auntie looked anxious. The uncle quickly introduced her. "This is the little girl who gave me the small pouch before. She said that the small pouch is useless for Mumu's condition, so she can help us take a look first." Only then did the auntie notice Lu Miao. She immediately turned around and knelt down in front of Lu Miao. She cried and said, "Miss, please save my Mumu. We only have one daughter. As long as we can save her, we are willing to spend any amount of money." They had done everything they could for the past few days. They were worried every day. Now, Lu Miao was their only hope. Lu Miao reached out to help her up. "Auntie, don't worry. You're injured. Treat the wound on your hand first. It's just a small injury. Mumu is more important." The auntie raised her hand to wipe the tears from the corners of her eyes. The middle-aged man hurriedly found a first aid kit from the cabinet and skillfully treated her wound. Clearly, this had happened many times before. Lu Miao walked to the kitchen door and turned to the uncle and auntie beside her. "Wait outside. No matter what you hear or see later, don't step into the kitchen." The uncle and auntie nodded nervously. Lu Miao then reached out to open the kitchen door and walked in. The kitchen floor was littered with pots and pans. The fridge door was wide open, and a girl who looked about her age was squatting in front of the fridge. She was holding a piece of raw meat and stuffing it into her mouth. Her stomach was bulging under her clothes, like a pregnant woman who was a few months pregnant. There was a gash on one of her arms, and blood was flowing all over her hand. Hearing Lu Miao enter, she did not react at all. After finishing the piece of raw meat in her hand, she took out a frozen fish from the fridge and started eating. Outside the door, when the auntie saw that she was injured, she was so anxious that tears fell. She called out to Mumu and subconsciously lifted her leg to go in. The middle-aged man at the side quickly pulled her back. "Don't forget what she said just now." Lu Miao closed the kitchen door. She threw 4 yellow talismans at the 4 corners of the kitchen. Sensing danger, the girl turned around and looked at Lu Miao. The whites of his eyes disappeared, and a pair of black eyes stared at Lu Miao. She bared her teeth and pounced on Lu Miao. Lu Miao formed a seal with one hand and slapped the girl. A shrill scream came from the girl's body. The girl hugged her head with both hands and fell to the ground in pain, screaming and rolling. Roars and screams interweaved together, making the uncle and auntie outside the door fearful and anxious. Lu Miao looked at the girl on the ground and said calmly, "I'll give you a chance. Come out yourself." The girl, however, unexpectedly jumped up from the ground with an agility that defied logic and turned to run towards the kitchen door. The yellow talismans in the corners of the kitchen all lit up at the same time, and an invisible barrier directly blocked her way back. The girl roared as she charged forward again. Lu Miao clicked her tongue impatiently and threw a pair of chopsticks over. A few chopsticks formed a magic formation above the girl's head, trapping her in place like an invisible cage. A moment later, a cloud of black mist came out of the girl's head. Lu Miao took a small copper gourd pendant from her neck, and the screaming in the black mist paused briefly, then it screamed and writhed desperately, trying to break through the formation. The gourd in Lu Miao's hand trembled slightly, and the black mist struggled for a moment before being forcefully sucked into the gourd. The girl's body wobbled in place, and then fell straight down. Lu Miao hung the small gourd back on the chain, waved her hand, and the chopsticks fell to the ground. She put away the yellow talisman at the four corners, then went forward and bent down to tap the girl's forehead. The girl's eyelids trembled as she slowly opened them. After seeing the person in front of her clearly, she spoke with some hesitation. Lu Miao. Although the school term had not started for a long time, Lu Miao was now a well-known figure in the school. She had heard many rumors about her in school, both good and bad. She had also seen her many times. But they didn't know each other at all, and they didn't have any interactions. Why would she suddenly appear at her house? When she lowered her head and saw her bulging belly, she was so scared that she could not help but scream. What happened to me? Lu Miao said unhurriedly, "You're stuffed." The girl touched her stomach in horror. She turned around and looked around, only to realize that she was in the kitchen. "What's going on?" she asked as she looked at the garbage on the ground and the wide-open refrigerator door. "Why am I here? What happened?" Lu Miao said lightly, "A week ago, you played spirit writing with someone at school." It wasn't a question, but a tone of certainty. When the girl heard this, her expression instantly became frightened. She swallowed hard and nodded. "Yes, during lunch break that day, a few boys in our class said that they were too bored and wanted to find some excitement. A classmate suggested that we play. He said that as long as he could invite the pen spirit, he could ask all the questions he wanted to know. However, they chanted the incantation for a long time, but the pen did not move. Later, I was really curious and didn't see anything scary, so I went over to play with them. Unexpectedly, just as I finished chanting the incantation, the pen in my hand suddenly moved uncontrollably. I was too scared to ask any questions and threw the pen in my hand away." At the mention of this, she still had lingering fears. She looked at Lu Miao nervously. Did I become like this because of that game? The so-called spirit writing is originally a kind of spirit summoning game. People who are lucky may not experience anything at all, or may only encounter some harmless ghosts wandering in the human world. Those who are unlucky may summon evil spirits. Unfortunately, you belong to the category with the worst luck, and have summoned a vengeful spirit. This type of evil spirit carries a great deal of resentment and, once provoked, will try to possess a person's body to accomplish its grudges. Over time, even if it doesn't actively harm you, it will consume your spiritual energy until it is depleted. Chapter 56. 56. It's good for everyone. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 56. It's good for everyone. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. At that time, the possessed person has no other way out except death. Lu Miao looked at her stomach. The one you summoned starved to death, so she kept eating. A few more days later, even if your spiritual energy wasn't completely exhausted, you would have died from overfilling. Lin Mu only realized that she had already walked through the gates of hell after hearing that. Her face instantly turned as pale as paper. Some unknown things may not necessarily not exist. You are not always lucky enough to have your father find someone who knows about it in time. Some games are better not to be touched. Lu Miao finished speaking and turned to open the kitchen door. The uncle and aunt immediately rushed over, sticking their heads inside to take a look. "Miss, how is my daughter?" the uncle asked anxiously. Lu Miao nodded. "She's fine now." The two of them rushed into the kitchen and hugged Lin Mu as they cried. The auntie looked at Lu Miao's bulging belly and looked at her worriedly. "Can she recover?" "She's fine. She just ate too much and all the food is stuck in her stomach. You can take her to the hospital for a checkup and let the doctor handle it." Lu Miao scanned her surroundings. As the vengeful spirit was taken away, most of the resentment in the house had dissipated. Only a small portion remained. She took her school bag and took out a small bag of red beans from it and handed it to the auntie. "Red beans can ward off evil spirits. Put these red beans in the four corners of the house. Don't touch them for a month. Okay, thank you, miss. Thank you so much. You're our family's savior. The auntie choked and pulled Lin Mu to kneel down before Lu Miao again. Lu Miao quickly reached out to block her. The middle-aged man rushed to the bedroom and took out a stack of money wrapped in plastic bags and stuffed it into Lu Miao's hands. Miss, here's 10,000 yuan. I know that people with skills like you charge a lot. This isn't much money. You can keep it for now. I'll go to the bank to withdraw the money tomorrow and give it to you. Lu Miao reached into the bag and took out one. This is enough. She didn't lack this bit of money. According to her normal charging standards, it wouldn't be enough even if they sold the house. However, when it comes to earning money, she is selective. She doesn't hesitate to charge wealthy clients, but she is willing to help kind-hearted people in need. However, if she didn't charge anything, the old man would feel guilty. It would also cause some unnecessary karma. This was enough to offset the money and travel expenses she had spent on the red beans at the market in the afternoon. This amount is fair and even for everyone. How can this be? This is too little. 100 yuan was not even enough to pay a fortune teller on the street. Moreover, she had saved the lives of the father and daughter. The uncle insisted on giving her more. Lu Miao waved her hand. You should take her to the hospital quickly. She'll feel uncomfortable soon. The vengeful spirit had already left her body, but her body had yet to react. Then, she looked at Lin Mu. I hope you can keep what happened today a secret when you get to school. Lin Mu nodded. I know. Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. Lu Miao did not stay any longer. She still needed to find a place to deal with this vengeful spirit. After leaving the Lin family's house, Lu Miao took a taxi to the suburbs. After settling everything and returning to the Gu residence, she did not see Gu Jinsi waiting at the door as usual. However, before she entered the door, she heard Shen Qinghe's hearty laughter coming from the living room. When she walked into the living room, she saw a handsome young man sitting beside Shen Qinghe on the sofa. The hair on his head was casually combed back, revealing his full and smooth forehead and exquisite facial features. The light yellow sweater on his body made his skin look even fairer. Although he was dressed simply, he looked even more dazzling than those celebrities on television. Lu Miao couldn't help but take another look. However, this person seemed somewhat familiar. She seemed to have seen it somewhere before. Seeing her enter, Shen Qinghe smiled and waved her over. She asked with concern, why are you back so late today? Did something happen at school? No, I went out to buy some things. Lu Miao said casually. Shen Qinghe did not ask further. If you need anything in the future, just let Auntie Xiao know. Lu Miao nodded. Shen Qinghe pulled her to her side with a smile and introduced her to him. This is Ziheng, the third child in the family. This kid was halfway through university, yet he insisted on joining the entertainment industry. He didn't make it big, but he was too busy every day. Only then did Lu Miao remember that this was the idol that Su Mo had been chasing after all day long. It wasn't enough for her to chase after him, she even had to persuade them to support him in various ways. It seemed like something had happened in the past. She cried out every day that she felt sorry for her idol. Lu Miao subconsciously narrowed her eyes and swept her gaze around him. Unlike Gu Shiyan and Gu Jinsi, this person was clean and did not seem to be affected by the 7-kill formation. She nodded slightly at him and greeted him. Shen Qinghe introduced her cheerfully, Ziheng, this is Miao Miao, your second sister. In terms of age, Gu Ziheng was 2 years older than Lu Miao. However, she has engaged to Gu Shiyan after all. Shen Qinghe did not think that there was anything wrong with this introduction. Gu Ziheng, who was at the side, nodded casually. He did not call her or refute her. Although the smile on his face did not change, Lu Miao could clearly see the coldness and distance in his beautiful eyes. He might not hate her. But he did not have a good impression of her either. Gu Ziheng glanced at her. Where's Xingyu? Aren't you guys in the same school? Why didn't you come back with her? Lu Miao then realized that Gu Xingyu had not returned either. Without waiting for her to speak, Shen Qinghe took the initiative to help her out. Xingyu, that frisky monkey, when will she come home on time after school? As they were talking, Gu Xingyu ran in from outside. Mom, why are you talking bad about me behind my back again? When she saw Gu Ziheng, her eyes lit up. Then, she immediately looked at Lu Miao warily. Then, she ran over and hugged Gu Ziheng's arm, acting coquettishly. Third brother, you're back. Why didn't you tell me in advance? Why should I tell you? Don't you like the other idol group? You even vote for them every day. Gu Ziheng raised his hand and poked her head as he said coldly. Hee, of course, I still prefer my third brother. Gu Xingyu leaned her head back and hugged Gu Ziheng's arm, refusing to let go. She looked at Lu Miao provocatively and declared her ownership of third brother to her. Gu Ziheng's attitude was cold. Lu Miao was not someone who liked to curry favor, so she did not stay any longer. After greeting Shen Qinghe, she went upstairs. However, just as she turned the corner of the stairs, she saw Gu Jinsi frowning and sneaking his head down the corridor. Chapter 57. 57. You don't have to pity him. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 57. You don't have to pity him. Seeing her go upstairs, he immediately put on a big smile and waved at her. After she went upstairs, he went straight to her room. Lu Miao asked directly, if you want to see him, why don't you go downstairs? TSK, I hate him the most. I get annoyed just hearing his voice. If he hadn't come back, I would have been waiting for sister.in.law at the door. Gu Jinsi pursed his lips. Why do you hate him? Lu Miao asked curiously. Logically speaking, he and Gu Ziheng were about the same age, so they should have been able to play together since they were young. Gu Jinsi snorted. Didn't he go to the entertainment industry halfway through his studies? Yet he even despises me every day. Lu Miao was speechless. Have you finished your homework? Of course. Gu Jinsi puffed out his chest proudly and ran up to his room on the third floor to get his homework before running down to check on Lu Miao. During dinner, due to Gu Jinsi's previous experience of being bewitched away by Lu Miao, Gu Xingyu was afraid that Gu Ziheng would be tempted and taken away by Lu Miao again. Sitting beside Gu Ziheng, she clung to him and talked incessantly, not even letting him give a glance to Lu Miao. Gu Ziheng accidentally picked up a piece of chili from the spicy chicken dish and put it into his mouth habitually without even looking at it. He subconsciously took 2 bites and frowned. Seeing this, Shen Qinghe hurriedly called the servant to bring a trash can over for him to spit. Tell me, why are you so careless during a meal? Gu Xingyu looked nervous. Third brother, how are you? Are you all right? On the side, Gu Jinsi sneered and said disdainfully, is it really necessary to make such a fuss over eating a piece of chili? If I didn't know any better, I would think it was poison. Third brother's throat hasn't recovered, you know that. As Gu Xingyu spoke, she glared at Lu Miao. It's all your fault. Why do you like spicy chicken so much? If his throat relapses because of you, I won't spare you. A few days ago, when Lu Miao passed by the living room, a food program was playing on TV and the chef happened to be making Sichuan cuisine. The screen was filled with bright red chili peppers, and Lu Miao subconsciously looked at them for a few more seconds, which happened to be noticed by Shen Qinghe. She asked if he liked spicy food, and Lu Miao casually replied with a yes. Shen Qinghe immediately instructed the servants to make at least 1 dish spicy every time they cooked. Gu Ziheng's throat had been bad for a long time, and he couldn't touch anything spicy or stimulating at all. When he was at home, these things were never allowed on the dining table. This time, it was also because he had returned so abruptly that the servants had forgotten his habits. Enough, Xingyu. It was your third brother who was careless. Shen Qinghe frowned and scolded. Gu Jinsi chimed in from the side. That's right. He's not a child that still needs sister.in.law to keep an eye on him. Because Gu Jinsi called her sister.in.law, Gu Ziheng finally turned his head to look at Lu Miao. He knew Gu Jinsi's personality very well. He had a bad temper and was stubborn. He refused to submit to anyone and treated his family like enemies. They had never liked each other since they were young and had never called him brother. To be able to make him call her sister.in.law willingly and even defend her in public, this Lu Miao really had some tricks up her sleeve. Thinking of what Gu Xingyu had told him, his expression darkened. Before finishing the meal, Gu Ziheng's throat had swelled to the point where he couldn't speak at all, and even his fair and white face had turned red. He looked very uncomfortable. Shen Qinghe immediately called the driver and took Gu Ziheng to the hospital with Gu Xingyu following closely behind. Only Lu Miao and Gu Jinsi were left in the huge dining area. Gu Jinsi stole a glance at her. He was afraid that she would mind Gu Xingyu's scolding earlier, so he quickly said to her warmly, sister.in.law, it's fine. Don't worry about them. Hurry up and eat. Lu Miao put down her chopsticks and thought of how Su Mo had been crying out for her heart while hugging her phone every day. She looked up at Gu Jinsi. What's wrong with his throat? It looked very serious and did not seem like an ordinary throat pain. Gu Jinsi pursed his lips and spoke reluctantly. 2 years ago, halfway through his studies at Harvard, he suddenly gave up his studies to run into the entertainment industry. He had a good face and a good singing voice. His first song was a hit. He had just been popular for half a year, and when he was at the height of his popularity, he had once participated in a show. He did not know who had poisoned his cup of water backstage. Although he was discovered in time, his throat and stomach were still seriously injured. From then on, he could no longer sing or eat spicy food. No wonder she had noticed that Gu Ziheng's voice sounded hoarse when he spoke, which was completely at odds with his delicate face. She had thought it was natural, but now she knew the reason. Lu Miao's delicate fingers unconsciously rubbed the bracelet on her wrist as she asked casually, "Did you not catch the person who poisoned him?" Gu Jinsi frowned and shook his head. At the time, there were a lot of people in the backstage area, including the program crew, the artist staff, the organizer's staff, and a lot of transient people. And there were too many corners and blind spots that the surveillance cameras couldn't cover in the backstage area. The police practically went through all the surveillance footage in the backstage area, but couldn't find any clues. The matter was left unresolved. The entertainment industry was a cutthroat place, where many people would do anything to become famous. The so-called unwritten rules for getting ahead were commonplace. Some people were jealous of others' success and resorted to dirty tactics out of a sense of unfairness. There were just too many dirty tricks that could be used against a newcomer who had just become popular and didn't yet know the rules of the industry. Lu Miao nodded. It's just an injury to the throat. It should be treatable. Gu Jinsi casually picked up a piece of fish. As he picked the bones, he said, that poison targets the throat specifically. My second brother has found many famous doctors in this area in the country and abroad. He has also taken all kinds of medicine, but it's all useless. After that, he gave up on the idea of treating it and stopped taking medicine. However, you don't have to pity him because of this. He picked up the fish bones and placed them into Lu Miao's bowl. After this incident, Mom and second brother asked him to go back to school, but he refused. He wasn't willing to invest in a movie or TV show either. He had to spend all his time on some extremely lousy online music programs. He was even lazier than me. Other than that, everything else was pretty good. My second brother even assigned him a professional team and security team. Gu Jinsi complained but did not forget to throw shade at him again. Moreover, after that, in order to accommodate him, my mother completely deprived us of the right to eat spicy food. I think he's too spoiled. Why should we all accommodate him? It's his own fault for not being able to eat and not paying attention. It's none of your business. Xingu is an idiot, don't take her words to heart. Chapter 58. 58, She's a pervert. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 58. She's a pervert. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. Lu Miao smiled helplessly. Although Gu Jinsi had a bad temper, he was meticulous. After saying so much, he was afraid that Gu Xingyu's words would make her unhappy, so he was trying to comfort her. She casually responded with a hum to reassure him. After dinner, Lu Miao went back to her room. She looked around the forum and asked Lin Bufan about the progress. After confirming that there were no problems, she turned off the computer. Just as he was about to get up and wash up, his heart suddenly skipped a beat. The formation she had set up around the Gu residence had been activated. After the last time she had dealt a heavy blow to them, the people behind the scenes had been silent for a long time. Had they finally reached their limit? She quickly got up, pushed open the balcony door, and climbed onto the roof in a few strides. She raised her hand and dispelled the black mist that shrouded the night sky, looking up at the sky. The light that made up the formation flickered on and off. In the places where the formation was broken, the light was struggling to move forward, trying to repair the broken formation. And every time the light moved forward even a little bit, in the space where ordinary people couldn't see, the formations she had set up would burst into a dazzling light. The light that had been struggling to move forward was quickly forced back by more light. The night sky and the formations on the ground were constantly fighting each other. The 7-kill formation was the #1 killing formation in history. Although it was incomplete, its power could not be underestimated. Soon, the formation on the ground could not hold on any longer, and the light gradually weakened. Lu Miao pursed her lips and quickly took out some talismans from her bracelet and threw them at the surrounding formations. The formation on the ground instantly glowed bridled and erupted at the same time. A few pillars of light shot into the sky, directly scattering the light rays that were originally trying to repair the formation. The formation in the night sky instantly darkened. As the 7-kill formation gave up on attacking, the formation on the ground slowly dimmed after a while. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. However, Lu Miao did not let her guard down. She hid her aura and stood there quietly for about 10 minutes. In the night sky, a dozen or so rays of light suddenly appeared at the same time from the damaged formation moving forward at an astonishing speed. In just 2 to 3 seconds, they had already advanced halfway. It was obvious that they had pretended to give up earlier to deceive her and were now taking advantage of her distraction to make a sudden push to repair a portion of the formation. Lu Miao sneered in her heart, formed a seal with her hands, and heavily struck the ground. More formations instantly flashed on the ground and exerted their power at the same time. After the lessons of the previous 2 battles, the person on the other side was wise enough to abandon their plan when their scheme was exposed. Lu Miao watched as the black mist once again shrouded the formation and pursed her lips. She had thought that the broken formation was due to the other side not having a complete formation, but it was clearly not the case. Perhaps the cost of setting up a complete formation was too high, so they had no choice but to set up only a part of it at the beginning. If it weren't for her, just that part alone would have been deadly for Gu Shiyan. Since they were now planning to complete the formation, it meant that they were willing to pay any price. She didn't have much time left. After thinking for a moment, she turned over and went downstairs, heading straight to Gu Shiyan's room. This guy had very few days of rest at home every month. The room was cold and deserted, devoid of any human presence. She reached out and opened the wardrobe door, revealing a deep and shallow row of suits hanging inside, without even a casual outfit. This guy was really a workaholic. The suits were too big, so it was inconvenient to hold them. She bent down and casually picked out a simple and thin home tee-dot shirt from the bottom of the cabinet. The 7-kill formation was targeted at Gu Shiyan. There was still his aura on his clothes. She wanted to use the aura on his clothes to disguise herself as Gu Shiyan, and then use the formation to temporarily transfer the damage brought by the 7 kills formation to this fake Gu Shiyan. Oh, however, this kind of camouflage would not last long. She was only buying them some time. The observatory still needed at least 1 or 2 months. She hoped that she could hold on until then. After restoring the cabinet to its original state, she turned around and walked out of the door. As soon as she reached for the doorknob, a greater force pushed the door open from the outside before she had the chance to open it herself. Seeing the face that suddenly appeared in the doorway, and then noticing the clothes in her hands, left Lu Miao stunned. Breaking into someone's room late at night, stealing their clothes, and being caught red-handed were definitely one of the most embarrassing situations she could imagine. Was there anything more embarrassing than this? Of course, she was about to learn that there's always something more embarrassing. The two of them remained silent for a moment. Finally, Gu Shiyan made a move. He looked at the clothes in her hand and then glanced at something behind her. When he saw that something, his eyes seemed to fixate on it for a moment, before looking back at Lu Miao with a knowing look. Lu Miao was baffled by his stare. She turned her head and looked in the direction of his gaze. Not far behind her, something black fell to the floor. She must have accidentally brought it out when she was taking the T-shirt. Just as she was wondering if she should go back and help him pick it up, she took a closer look and instantly froze on the spot. Then, that black thing was a pair of boxers. Lu Miao's heart was instantly filled with a ton of cursed words. Is the heavens F*** playing with her? Of all things, she had to bring out a pair of underwear. Those who didn't know better would think that she was a pervert who stole other people's underwear. Even the T-shirt in her hand suddenly became a little hot to touch. If she could, she just wanted to dig a hole and bury herself in it. Why is it that every time she's at her most embarrassed, it's always when Gu Shiyan is around to witness it? Lu Miao seriously considered playing dead on the spot to avoid this massive embarrassment. The conclusion was, of course, that it was not feasible. Looking at how she was forcing herself to be calm, Gu Shiyan could not help but smile. He said considerately, "You don't have any clothes to change into. Are you here to borrow some clothes?" Lu Miao knew that he was giving her a way out. Gu Shiyan had always been a gentleman in this regard. As long as she did not take the initiative to speak, he would never ask her what she did not want to say, nor would he expose her. She nodded. "Yes. I've worn this before. I'll get you a new one." Gu Shiyan smiled and reached out to take the clothes from her. No need. This one is fine." Lu Miao braced herself and said. Old clothes had to have his aura in order to disguise himself. New clothes would not work at all. Gu Shiyan's good-looking eyebrows could not help but raise slightly. Although he did not know what she wanted to do by secretly taking his clothes when he was not around. However, he raised his pale finger and pointed at the boxers on the floor behind him. The corners of her lips curled into a faint smile. "Do you want that too?" Lu Miao. Who was the one who called him a gentleman? Chapter 59. 59. What other people have, his little friend must have too. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 59. What other people have, his little friend must have too. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. This guy was clearly doing this on purpose. Why didn't she realize that Mr. Gu had such a bad personality? Lu Miao's lips twitched. "No need, thank you. If there's nothing else, I'll go back first." After saying that, she pretended to be elegant and calm as she nodded slightly at Gu Shiyan. Then, she took the clothes and left this suffocating place. Gu Shiyan could not help but chuckle when he heard the sound of the door next door slamming tight impatiently. It was rare to see her show such a childish side. His little friend was indeed very cute. He lifted his long legs and walked in. He bent down and picked up the underwear that had fallen to the ground with his fingers. He had only come back at the last minute to get something. He did not expect to encounter such a fun scene. It seemed that he had to come back more often in the future. Although he knew that she couldn't really have come to take him because she lacked clothes, after thinking about it carefully, she did not seem to have any clothes. Every time he saw her, except for the first time when he went to pick her up at the Liu family's house, she was wearing a plain school uniform. Her small, unadorned face had no makeup on it, and even her hair tie was the simplest black one. Thinking about how Gu Xingyu wished she could change into 10 outfits a day and how vain she was, he lightly touched his chin. What other people had, his little friend also had to have, and they had to have more and better. Lu Miao returned to her room and covered her face. This was too embarrassing. Fortunately, Gu Shiyan did not ask too much. Otherwise, she might have really considered running away from home. Luckily, Gu Shijian didn't stay at home for too long. Before long, the sound of a car leaving could be heard outside the window. Lu Miao walked to the window and watched the car lights gradually fade away. After confirming that he had really left, she heaved a sigh of relief. She placed the T-shirt in the box that she had prepared in advance and placed her index and middle fingers together between his eyebrows. A silvery white light was drawn out from her forehead like a stream of water. Almost instantly, Lu Miao's face turned pale. This was her origin energy, and also the foundation that supported all her spells. To all cultivators in the metaphysic world, this was something more important than their lives. After coming to this world, she had only cultivated this little. But this was the only way for her to truly deceive everyone. As soon as the origin energy was drawn out, it immediately showed signs of scattering. Lu Miao quickly formed a hand seal with her fingers and formed a small light formation around the ball of origin energy. Then, she slapped it into the T-shirt and placed it in a box. She quickly took a silver dagger that she had prepared beforehand and cut her fingertip. She drew a talisman on the paper and sealed it outside the box. After doing all of this, she could not help but feel a little dizzy. This body was still too weak. All of her origin energy was suddenly extracted, and she could not withstand it for a moment. Lu Miao held onto the table in front of her and rested for a moment before she finally felt better. She found a secret place to put the box away. A faint pain came from her fingertips, and he lowered her eyes to take a look. Because she didn't have the origin energy, her mind was in a daze. The wound on her fingertip was still bleeding. She turned around and went downstairs to find the first aid kit. She applied some hemostatic medicine to her wound before she reluctantly turned around to wash up and rest. The next morning, Lu Miao was awakened by a knock on the door. She opened her heavy eyes. Her head and body were filled with pain. Every movement and every breath was accompanied by unbearable pain. This was the consequence of having too much origin energy extracted. She took a deep breath and got up to open the door. She saw a few servants standing at the door with all kinds of bags in their hands. There was also a long row of bags on the floor of the corridor by her door. There were all kinds of luxurious logo on the bags, from jewelry to skincare products, cosmetics, various styles of clothes, and even underwear. Auntie Xiao saw her and said with a smile, "Second master had someone send these from overseas overnight. They're all the latest models that haven't been released yet. Take a look and see if you like it. If you don't like it, second master said that you can make do with it first. In the next 2 days, he will arrange for a designer to come and tailor it according to your preferences." Lu Miao raised her hand to her forehead. Hiring the top designer to come over. She was sure that Gu Shijian would do something like this. She endured the pain in her chest and waved her hand. "No need. These are enough. Leave them in the room." Auntie Xiao immediately smiled and called the servants behind her to bring the things into the room. Gu Jinsi was still sleeping, and Lu Miao was the only one at the breakfast table. "Auntie Xiao, didn't Auntie Shen come back last night?" Xiao Yi shook her head with self-blame. I asked the driver. Lao Chao said that the young master's condition was very serious. He had throat swelling which caused an airway obstruction, and he almost suffocated. He was treated in the emergency room for a long time last night. It's all my fault. I knew that young master couldn't touch chili. When young master came back last night, I shouldn't have made that spicy chicken. Her eyes reddened as she spoke. Although Madame did not blame her, if it was not for her carelessness, this would not have happened. Madame is so good to me. If something really happens to young master this time, how could I live with myself? He will be fine. Don't worry too much. Lu Miao comforted her. Gu Zihang's throat was injured by poison. It was not an irreversible and incurable disease for her. It was just that it was a little troublesome to fully recover. After school in the afternoon, Lu Miao did not go home. Instead, she went to the herb medicine market. She didn't plan on getting involved with Gu Zihang's matter originally, but that dish at the dinner table was because of her. This is what they called unintended consequences. Auntie Xiao had always treated her well, so she couldn't let her continue to feel guilty about this. Metaphysic people were the most concerned about karma. This matter started because of her, and she needed to end this karma. Otherwise, even if she leaves in the future, she would definitely be implicated. As soon as she entered the market, she could smell the fragrance of medicine. Those who could open a shop in the medicinal herb market all knew some traditional Chinese medicine skills. When the store owner saw the prescription she gave, his eyes instantly lit up. He looked her up and down. Young girl, this prescription of yours is for the throat, right? Yes. Lu Miao replied casually. The store owner asked excitedly, may I ask where this prescription came from? The combination of the herbs on the prescription looked very strange. Some of the herbs were even poisonous when placed together. But examining it carefully, it seemed to complement each other. When different poisons were put together, they could produce another stronger medicinal effect. Nowadays, Western medicine is prevailing while traditional Chinese medicine is declining. However, in fact, traditional Chinese medicine is stronger than Western medicine. It's just that traditional Chinese medicine is different from Western medicine. There was not much theoretical research or scientific basis. It mostly emphasizes the compatibility and incompatibility of the properties of herbs. There are many herbs, such as Ren Shenhuang, cinnabar, and purple perilla, that are even difficult to understand. Sometimes, even a brick could be used as medicine. This has led to more and more people not believing in traditional Chinese medicine. His family could be considered a traditional Chinese medicine family. Naturally, he could understand the preciousness of this prescription at a glance. Lu Miao casually made up a story. It's passed down in my family. I wonder if your family has the intention to sell this prescription. The store owner looked at her with anticipation. Lu Miao refused without hesitation. No, although the store owner was a little disappointed, he was not surprised. Such a precious prescription could become a proprietary prescription in the hands of any doctor. Moreover, if he applied for a patent from the relevant department and cooperated with a pharmaceutical factory, he could live a carefree life with the patent alone. Naturally, she wouldn't just sell people. After thinking for a while, he said, how about this? I won't buy out your prescription. I'll only buy the right to use it. I can pay you a deposit of 100,000 yuan. In the future, I'll split the profits with you 70 to 30 for every piece sold. 7 for you, 3 for me. As for publicity and operations, I'll be fully responsible for them. You just need to collect the money at home. Seeing Lu Miao's listless face with her eyes downcast, it seemed like she had no intention of agreeing at all. He quickly added, don't reject me yet. You can go back and discuss it with your family first. If it was a matter of price, they could discuss it again. Okay. Lu Miao responded lazily and did not say anything else. Knowing that she did not agree, he did not force her. He only asked if he could leave her phone number. "I'll come again if I need it." Lu Miao glanced at him and left after taking the medicine. If the timing of brewing, the heat, and the order of adding the herbs into the pot were incorrect, the medicinal effects would be compromised. This was also the reason why she dared to give the prescription directly to him, without any fear of it being stolen. As soon as she left, the boss immediately turned around and went back to his room. He took out his phone and dialed a number. Chapter 60. 60. Peerless Green Tea. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 60. Peerless Green Tea. Translator. Dragon Boat Translation Editor. Dragon Boat Translation. After returning home with the herbs, Lu Miao personally stood by the stove to cook them. Peeling off the bandage on her hand, the wound she had cut last night had turned white, but it had yet to heal completely. She couldn't help but tsk. Her body was already weak, and after extracting the power from the source, it was even more so. Even the healing speed of her wound was so slow. She took out a silver dagger and cut the wound again. The deep red blood dripped into the cooked soup. Ordinary throat problems would be cured after taking this prescription once. Gu Ziheng's situation was special. The poison should have completely destroyed his vocal cords, and it had been delayed for too long. If she wanted to cure the disease, she had to use human blood as a primer to make the medicine work. After she was done, Lu Miao bandaged her wound again. After asking Auntie Xiao the address of the hospital where the others were, she took a taxi there. At this moment, in the hospital ward, Lu Xiu was sitting in front of the hospital bed. She looked at Gu Ziheng on the bed with concern and said, "Brother Ziheng, is your throat better?" Among the Gu family's siblings, her eldest brother Gu had fallen out with his family because of some matters in his early years. He went abroad and did not even return when his father passed away. She had only seen him a few times when she was young. Although Gu Shiyun was engaged to her, he was always cold and indifferent towards her, and they had only met a few times. Ironically, it was Gu Ziheng who treated her the best and liked her the most. When they were young, he would always take her and Xingyu out to play together. Xingyu had told her before that her third brother didn't like Lu Miao, so she naturally wanted to win him over before Lu Miao did. Gu Ziheng smiled and nodded. His voice was unusually hoarse as he replied, "It's a small matter. I'll be fine in 2 days." "What small matter?" "If you came a little later, your air passage would have been obstructed and you would have lost your life," Gu Xingyu said unhappily. "It's all because of Lu Miao. We were not allowed to have any spicy or stimulating food at the dinner table. If it weren't for her love of stick food, and demanding it every day, the servants wouldn't have cooked it, and my third brother wouldn't have accidentally eaten it," Gu Xingyu continued, getting more and more agitated. She kicked her leg fiercely into the air as if trying to kick Lu Miao. Lu Xiu bit her lip, her face full of guilt. "I'm sorry, Brother Ziheng." Miao Miao was used to being wild in the countryside, so she was a little willful. She always did things according to her own preference and would not consider others. She just liked spicy food and didn't think about anything else. "I didn't expect to cause you so much trouble and even cause you to be hospitalized. As her sister, I apologize to you on her behalf. I hope you won't hold it against her." "See you, why do you always speak up and apologize for her? I already said that the trouble she caused has nothing to do with you." When Gu Xingyu mentioned Lu Miao, her face was filled with disgust. Gu Ziheng said, "See you, don't think too much. I don't blame her. This matter was indeed my own carelessness." He was not like Gu Xingyu, who insisted to blame everything on Lu Miao. Even if he doesn't like her, he knows how to distinguish right from wrong. "Yes, thank you, Brother Ziheng. I bought loquats for you to cough and moisten your lungs. Please try them." Lu Xiu obediently peeled a golden loquat and handed it to him with a smile. Gu Ziheng knew that Lu Miao and Lu Xiu had been swapped at birth. However, He had been busy training a contestant for a music competition on an island during that time. Gu Xingyu told him later on why Lu Miao was the one getting engaged to second brother. When he returned home yesterday before she could even ask Shen Qinghe about it, this incident happened again and he ended up in the hospital. In addition, he had always treated Lu Xiyu as a younger sister. Therefore, even if he knew that Lu Xiyu was not the real daughter of the Lu family, he did not care. When Lu Miao rushed to the hospital and pushed open the door, the three of them were laughing and chatting happily in the ward. The atmosphere was very harmonious. She looked around and saw that Shen Qinghe was not there. She did not know where she had gone. She was planning to leave and call Shen Qinghe to deliver the items to her and leave. But the people inside had already noticed her. Lu Xiyu was stunned for a moment. Even though her heart was filled with hatred and only wished that she could strangle her, she still managed to control her facial expression perfectly. She stood up and greeted her gracefully, "Miao Miao, you're here. Come and sit here." On the other hand, Gu Xingyu's face immediately turned cold as she grabbed Lu Xiyu's arm and said angrily, "What are you here for? Are you here to see if you've killed my third brother so you can inherit our Gu family's wealth?" "Xingyu, what are you saying?" Gu Ziheng glanced at her from the side. "Xingyu, how can you speak like that?" Gu Ziheng looked at her disapprovingly. It wasn't that he was speaking up for Lu Miao, but rather, no matter what, Lu Miao was now engaged to his brother, making her part of their Gu family. It would be inappropriate to make things any more awkward than they already were. "I didn't say anything wrong. If it weren't for her greed for our family's money, she wouldn't have insisted on snatching Siyu's position and marrying into the Gu family. She even spent our Gu family's money extravagantly, donating to orphanages and contributing millions to class funds. Now she comes to see you with false path. Who knows what she's realv up to?" Gu Zinzvu said Enzrilv, her eyes widened in fury as she listed everything without reservation.